Got a kiddo napping, so my clap was a bit quiet on that one. Welcome back, Relaxed Reps listeners.
Yeah, it's been a while. Hope everyone's doing well. Hope the new year's treating you all right as we roll into February. Man, it's crazy. January I thought was awfully long. I don't know about you, but man, it's like I'm happy to be moving. I mean, time always keeps moving, right? So I'm just happy to be in February.
It's a linear journey. None of us can go back yet.
Yeah,
And half the country got hit with a ton of snow.
yeah, yeah. I
Um,
got some good. I don't know what we would call this type of work. That was like my conditioning for the week, going out there
ooh,
shoveling a couple of days.
we were just talking about this before we were recording. What would you call that? Aerobic cardiac output?
Yeah,
I
shit.
mean, depending on the speed at which threshold work, depending on the speed at which you're shoveling, I guess.
That's right.
Um,
Let's break this down biomechanically as well. Um,
because it
I
all
will
works in
say
silos.
we have an old client of mine that I still train, and he was like telling me, and I was like, "Oh, that makes sense." He was telling me that during this time of year, especially after a snowstorm, the most ER visits for heart attacks and like back injuries is right after a snowstorm.
I've
And I
heard
was like,
that.
wow, I mean, it makes sense because you think about a lot of people that don't have to do any of that stuff in their normal day have to force themselves to shovel and work really hard to get their cars out and ready to drive because they have to go to work and do those things. So um yeah, it forces people off the couch and it's like 0 to 100. So yeah,
Yeah,
just funny.
if you take a detrained and unconditioned individual and have them speed rotary deadlift, which is what shoveling
Yeah,
is, right? You're lifting
yeah.
and twisting a lot of times. Yeah, that's gonna take some people out. That's gonna take some
Yeah.
people out. So make sure to prep before you go out and shovel, not just with your snow gear, but get some stretching in. Limber up, be ready. Focus on your breathing too. Stay safe out there. Thankfully, before the storm hit, we were able to make it to a conference together. Think you wanted to
Yeah.
touch on that one, so I'll let you talk about it if you want.
Yeah, it was fun. It was just it was the National High School Strength Conditioning Association's Ohio Clinic. So we went to that together. I went to it last year. I think we talked about it on the pod too. I'll put that in the description in the notes if you want to go back and listen to that one too. But yeah, it was very similar in that way. And I got to see a lot of old colleagues and friends of mine. Shout out Kurt and Kurt's Corner, baby. We're gonna bring him on the pod. He's awesome. I'm sure he's listening. Ohio Northern director of strength conditioning, the major in the department there, and it was good to see them and some of my old athletes from there and interns and things. So yeah,
And I had to step outside my comfort zone and shake some hands and meet some new people. So I flexed my social butterfly skills, my atrophied social muscles. There it is.
oh, that was good. Atrophied
Thanks.
social muscles. Yeah,
Yeah.
there you go.
Um, so we got a fun one today. I was excited to see this text from you in terms of things you wanted to cover and discuss. I'll let you lead in, man. I want to hear what's on your mind.
Yeah. I feel like sometimes I'm just doing work, and I'm sure you're like this too, and I always have sticky notes with me, and I'm like, oh, this would be awesome if we talked about this on the pod, and we just want to get your take on different things. And this was about strength standards. And as strength conditioning coaches, right, I think a lot of us put a lot of weight into how heavy our athletes can lift and train and those different things. And we do strength standards depending on body weight and of different teams and specifics. But I guess my thought is, do we need strength standards? Is that something that you care about? I'll talk personally. Like, it's not something that I specifically am going to go out of my way and make sure that so and so is doing this with X amount of their body weight, or we need to make sure that their bench press is 2.5 times their body, whatever, right? That's just kind of an example of one. But yeah, I think it's nice to have standards, obviously, but I think some of these things don't necessarily need to be about strength.
Interesting. I don't, I don't know. I know how I feel. I don't fully believe in strength standards. I don't like them. I don't
Yeah.
like them a lot. And it depends so much on who you're working with, what your population is, because like for adult clients, like we were talking about with the shoveling example, if you take people that are, coming off the couch and throw strength standards in their face, you're going to lose and insult a lot of your clientele because
Yeah.
they're nowhere near that. So there's no point in throwing those numbers out. I You could also look at like testing days. Again, I don't know. The idea that we have to shoot for this number,
Yeah.
I don't I get the point of it. I get the benefit of it. To classify kind of if someone is elite or needs more work in one area. I guess it's just another way of testing that seems to be really popular. If you're working with,
Yeah.
I don't know, a team, like if you're working with a football team as an example, I kind of get that because they're all working towards the same goal. Like you're all doing the same thing. You all are roughly of the same fitness level. Some have more experience, some have less. But I mean,
Yeah.
if you walk into a high school football team strength session, most of them are kind of around a certain area. Some need a little bit more strength work. Some are pretty top tier already. But like I can see it there. I don't know. I think it just depends on the gym. But I'm not hugely a fan of them. Even when I was working more with athletes,
Yeah.
you and I have both seen it. Like strength standards are okay, but can you do a single leg squat like with absolute control, or a skater
Yeah.
squat with absolute control? Or I don't know, you know?
I saw one that was funny. A strength standard this guy had was you had to hold your body weight in your hands and do a split squat hold at the bottom for 30 seconds. And I was like, that's an interesting way to look at strength standards too, because I think a lot of times it's very pegged into a bench press, a back squat, or a deadlift. Sometimes chin ups too for like body weight for chin ups. I'm just thinking of something like that, but those are usually like the three or four that I think of like immediately when I think of strength standards. So maybe opening eyes to different things that we hold value in, whether that be a single leg squat or a skater squat or a hold or something.
Yeah, I don't know. I might I kind of take it back in a sense. I like if we view strength standards as test days, like I think it's pretty safe to say the stronger you are, the more resilient you are. Um,
Yeah.
and the higher your strength standard, let's say 2 times body weight on deadlift. If you're able to hit that, that's better than hitting 1.5 times body weight on deadlift.
Yeah.
You're stronger as you move those standards up. Like I don't know. I believe that we
Yeah. I
should
think
test
you're right
and
though.
gather that
Yeah.
data, but to just say everybody needs to be at 2 times body weight on a squat is like I think that's pointless. But to say we should all look to improve our 3 rep max on a squat, I side with that, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. I
So I
don't
don't
I
know.
don't think it can't be universal. Like a lot of arguments try to say it is. Strength standards should be universal. You should be getting this 2 times your body weight on a back squat, that stuff like that. Because to me, it's like, okay, well, cool. I got my tennis player to get 2 times his body weight on back squat. Like, is he going to be more resilient? He's going to be stronger. I don't know if he's going to be more resilient for tennis because that's like just very different movements and mechanics and what he needs for the sport. I would argue maybe for an offensive lineman for football, that might be that's a different conversation though. You know what I mean?
Yeah, should we strive to get stronger? Absolutely. Should we strive to hit um, a randomly selected number set by other strength coaches? Of course not. Of course not. Yeah, to your point, I think coaches that try to enforce that, like using your tennis athlete as an example, if you try to push the narrative that they have to do 2 times body weight on back squat on them and they do it and they blow out their knees, they're not going
Yeah.
to be playing tennis for a while. So like it depends on the athletic population, depends on the training age, depends on so many things. And levers, I mean, you've seen kids that are, super tall walking into the gym, and some that are, not tall at
Yeah,
all. And to say, both of them have to squat 2 times their body weight when one has drastically longer levers. I don't know. Yes, we should all
that's
get
a great
stronger,
point.
but like,
I mean, look at basketball. I think of basketball and volleyball especially is like are we really getting everything we want out of this? Like in our training, if we're doing this, especially to these kids. Um, yeah, like am I going to be, especially when I look at sports like that, like am I pushing their career longer? Is that something that's going to push their career longer? Is if it's not, then it's like how much am I really going to put into that?
I feel like strength standards primarily come from those that are in the powerlifting space.
Yeah.
Because again, like you said, right? What are the 3 lifts that we're going to typically pull those numbers from? Bench, squat, and dead. When that is your sport, then yeah, strength standards hold up. That makes sense when that is your sport. But if your sport happens in the frontal plane like tennis, does it really matter if we're hitting, 1.5 times body weight on bench? No, it doesn't. I don't think it matters. So yeah,
I have worked with coaching staffs that have pulled up data from them working with teams 10 years ago, 15 years ago. And they're like, here's all the numbers that we used when I won a championship in 2005. This is what our team needs right now. And having that conversation is always kind of interesting because I'm like, okay, well, that 2005 team is not the same players, not the same attributes of those players, not the same, um, I don't know, just everything's different, right? So then for you to say that this worked in 2005, it's 2026 now. So that was 20 years ago. Is that a lot has changed? Kids change, environments change. How strong kids coming into college changes, and high school changes, and how much they care about strength conditioning has changed. I feel like, especially with social media, it's everything's different. So for you to come in and have that conversation with me, it's always just kind of interesting because you have to kind of try to educate a little bit too, and be like, okay, well, obviously I'm going to be trying to get these standards up for our team, but when it's not met the same way, that's a conversation that we need to say like, well, there's a lot of different variables here,
yeah, and yeah, I stand by it. Should we all strive to be stronger? Yes.
Yeah.
Should we all strive to hit a just randomly selected number set by another coach? I don't think so. No, I do not think so. But if you're going to pull strength standards, I think you got the best shot at it on the athletic side of things with athletes, the S&C side versus, personal training. Yeah, I don't know, I don't know how you get away with that when you have adult clients that have sedentary jobs and kids and all these
Man.
responsibilities. Like when you were talking about that, it reminded me like training does not exist in a vacuum.
Yeah.
The closest thing to it is your elite athletes. Like, and even then they still have some stress factors, but like training is their job. That's their
Yeah.
job. So yeah, training just does not exist in a vacuum.
Yeah,
So
absolutely. And that's
trying to reinforce those
I was
numbers.
thinking about this too. So we talking about strength standards, right? Um I think there's now been a bigger push to have speed standards for things because a lot of people are now training and testing speed a lot more with the availability to have like different speed lasers and that kind of thing. And I've seen a lot more of that recently. And I think I'm on board for a lot of that for athletes. Now that's another one that we've talked about on another podcast about speed and how it's more specific for different athletes and different age groups and how to train speed. That's another link I'll put in to our descriptions if you want to go back and listen to that one as well. But yeah, I think that's an interesting one too. I really like just like a 10-yard sprint. We did this a lot at the place that we worked at, and we would kind of we would test that with a lot of the different teams and athletes we worked with. A 10-yard sprint or a 10-yard fly with like you're building up for 10 yards and then you're running as fast as you can for 10 yards. So it's like 20 yards basically. I really like both of those. And we've been doing a lot of that at the gym I'm at right now, and working with different teams and just seeing them really compete from that standpoint too. And it's just kind of fun too to get out of the way that we have been training speed. But yeah, speed standards. I don't know if you got any thoughts on speed standards and what that looks like, or if you would ever do any of that with anybody.
Speed standards. I think I view it the same way as I would view strength standards, right? Like, I wouldn't say that anybody has to strive for X time on a 10-yard sprint if I've never met them. Again, I'm not a speed coach. I'll fully say that outright. Do I think that we should all try to get faster? Of course. Do I think we should, strive for an objective random number? No. Faster, right? Faster. But you mentioned something that I thought was interesting. You were talking about it with strength standards. Tennis athlete compared to like an O lineman.
Yeah.
Different sports require and different athletes require different levels of mobility and stability. So if you look at a lineman's 10-yard time and you look at a kicker's 10-yard time, one has a lot more mass to move.
Yep.
I expect their 10-yard time might not be as quick as a lighter athlete. I could be wrong. Maybe there's some freaks out there that move mass with a whole lot of gas. I don't know. But typically, the larger, looking at the mobility and stability kind of spectrum, I think it's interesting when you look at that and talk speed,
Yeah.
Well, they're two separate ideas, but like the same principle of different sports and builds require different kind of testing parameters, different speed parameters is what I was getting
different
at.
attributes. Yeah. No, that makes sense. Yeah. I know that, man, like you could really get into the weeds and all this. And like, it's always funny because a kid will run and I'll tell them their time and they're like, is that good? Is that good? I'm like, I don't know. What's good? You know what? Like I couldn't tell you what's good.
That's my point, right? Is when you introduce speed standards, you open yourself up to have to answer that question, right?
Yeah.
Again, standards, right? So if someone, taking it back to lifting, if your goal strength standard is 1.5 times body weight and they hit, 1.25 times body weight on their back squat and they say, is that good? How do you package that to them and say, no, based on you got great depth, you moved more weight than you did last week, but you didn't meet my strength standard. So no, it was not good. Like that's such a shit message to send to somebody, right? So that's why I'm not the biggest fan of strength standards. It's not that you have to hit anything. You do have to be better or try to be better each and every time you come in, of course. So when we're talking about speed, if you're going to have speed standards, you have to answer that question. Was that good? No. Based on the national average for 10-yard sprint times, you are below average.
Yeah.
Sorry, kiddo. That's so shit.
Yeah.
Right? So, was that good, coach? You look at what they did last week. You look at what their last one was today. Hey, we're improving. Hey, we're getting a bit slower. Did you take your rest? And if you work with youth athletes, they never take their rest. They get done with one sprint and they said, oh, they got a faster time. I want to go again right now. I don't need rest.
Run back. Yeah.
Yep. They just run a big old loop. And you're like, why are we not resting? If you want to produce power, you rest. So yeah,
sometimes, but that's also coaches too. Like having a conversation with coaches, like, hey, if you want them to run at their fastest, we need to take the break, the rest, to run at their fastest. That's still a thing, by the way, but that's a little tangent itself.
Yeah, people don't want to hear it, but rest is vital for performance in the short term, in between sets, and rest is vital in between training days. Not a tangent I expected to take, but yeah, rest is necessary.
Well, that's where leaderboards can get tricky too. And I've kind of fallen into some of that stuff too, where if you put leaderboards in the weight room and those kind of things, and it's like, oh, well, I really need to hit this. And like, all I'm doing is just pursuing these numbers. And obviously that doesn't really matter. Like getting better, all the numbers is important, right? But is that going to win you the game on Saturday? Like, I don't know. I don't know if that's the right answer.
I don't like leaderboards for the same reason I don't like strength standards. There is nothing about, like you said, if I'm trying to beat so and so's time on a 10-yard sprint, and that's all I'm focused on in the weight room, not spending time thinking about the strength work. I'm not fully bought into the strength work. I'm thinking about being
Yeah.
this number when really you're doing yourself a disservice because you're so focused on the speed component that you're not focused on lifting component. So you're not any more resilient, and then you're not even prepared for the game because you weren't focused on your
Yeah.
strength work. Like, I like the idea of competition within the day,
Yep.
but the idea of, you walk in and you see somebody else's number, again, unless that's your world, in which it is for powerlifting, I get that. Unless that's your world, why expose you, especially youth athletes, to all of that unnecessary competition long term?
Yeah.
I think, my opinion.
Yeah. No, and I think we're on the same page for the most part on that. I think it's like, is that going to be more important? Because you get into a thing with athletes where that becomes more important than some of the on-field work that they should be working on or focusing on. And I've had that too, where I've had conversations with athletes and I'm like, hey, we are in season right now. You do not need extra days of lifting on your own. We need to focus on you getting better at your footwork, you getting better at reading the game, you doing more things on the field so that we can win on Saturday, and that happens. And that's part of it. So,
But arms, coach, but arms. I gotta hit my curls.
yeah, exactly.
I gotta,
And I'm like,
I gotta do my calf raises, coach.
yeah, well, coach, I gotta see the girls on Saturday night after we win. Like, hey, well, we gotta win first, buddy. We gotta get that number for like that's the most important number. Not the how many inches are on your bicep, dude. Like, you can worry about that after you get done playing football, after you get done playing your sports. Like, that's the time to really focus on that.
We were talking about it before we started recording, but it's hard for people to prioritize, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I want to put up the best number on my 10-yard sprint. I want to put up the best number on bench. I want to have the biggest arms, and I want to win the game. And there's only 24 hours in the day, so how are you spending them? Like, it's humans. We want to do it all the time, every direction, and it's like you need to. I think a good strength coach helps to prioritize those and structure those in a way that we can work towards them all realistically and safely.
Yeah. No, and I like that too. I think that even happens with my training, and I'm sure it happens with your training too, where you're just trying to reach in too many directions, and then you end up, not getting what you wanted from the training block, hurting yourself, those kind of things, and it happens, and then you just kind of have to look back on and reevaluate what you're doing, and just be like, I really liked what you said earlier about, okay, you have like 4 different goals that you want. You only have 10 points. And I like kind of putting it like that, almost like attributes in a video game or something. Like, you can only put 10 points to those 4 things. Like, what are the most important goals for you to put the most points in? And I think that's a really good way to look at training.
And I don't know. I'm sure I heard it somewhere. But yeah, I mean, so to your point, I was trying to phrase a question to a client, and I'm not trying to say, hey, which one of these things that you said, all these things are important, which one of them is now not important? No one's going to say,
Yeah.
well, this other thing is not important to me now because you asked a question. It's still important, right? Someone can want to get bigger and stronger and faster and want to improve all their metrics. So I think it's just a good framework to say, I know all of these things are important to you. Help me rank them, or help me spend points so that we can understand kind of where our eggs are in the most baskets. Yeah, it's an interesting framework to try out. You had something else you wanted to talk about, which was structure versus play. And I think we're kind of entering that territory in terms of talking about the competitive side of it and competing with 10-yard times. But I was curious what your thoughts were on that topic.
No, yeah, that does kind of piggyback into what we were talking about too, because structure and play, especially with youth athletes or just athletes in general, I think for me personally has been different than most people, where I got into strength and conditioning a lot later than most people. I just started in college and went from there. And the biggest thing from that standpoint was I was just out with my friends and we would just play all the sports, and we would play basketball and we would play football and lacrosse and hockey and all these different things that I got all these touch points of just playing and just being athletic in those qualities versus in a very structured environment that sometimes strength conditioning coaches and gyms and whatever and sessions kind of look like. And you have very regimented things that we're doing, whether that's jumping on boxes, whether that's like change of direction work that's like very controlled, stuff like that. I guess that's kind of what I'm going at for structure versus play. And I'm trying, I think about this a lot more now that I'm done playing. But if I had started strength conditioning training, like strength training earlier in my career, like earlier in high school and maybe even in middle school, would my performance have changed a lot? Or did the avenue and the path that I went down that was a lot more just being playing and having more free play and kind of being creative in that way, did that have a better impact and benefit on my performance? And obviously we talked about you can't go back to the past yet, so you'll never know, but it's just something that's interesting because I think this is something that we battle with all of our athletes, and I battle with myself for programming, and how am I going to program, and how do I want to make things competitive and fun and make sure that they're still trying to have a creative side and trying to have their own decisions and make decisions for themselves in that way. I just threw a lot. I know.
A lot to unpack there. Not to get philosophical, but I'm going to do it because why not? You can't go back. It's true. Time is a very linear journey. We only move forward. But I was just thinking about this as you were saying that. Again, this is philosophical. Brace yourself. I'm glad you're sitting down. I think kids are our best way at kind of doing it over and doing it right. And I don't say that from the perspective of, well, I didn't have good conditioning as an athlete, so I'm going to make my kid run and run and run and run. I'm not saying that. I'm saying knowing what you know about physical activity and what you know about long-term athletic development, if you choose to have kids or with the athletes you work with as youth athletes, you can still offer them opportunities to broaden their skill set, because you learned that doing all these other sports improved what we call physical literacy.
Yeah.
You learned it out later, and you can't go back. But with your youth athletes and with their parents, you can share that information so that they can try out other sports. So, yeah, kids do allow us kind of that opportunity to dip back into the past in a generous and supportive way. Don't be dicks, parents. Don't be dicks. You and I have seen it so many times. A parent that, almost won a national title, so now my kid has to be the next big thing. It's like, no. Yep. Is that what they want to do? Let your kid be a kid. Oh, yeah. It gets under my skin. Anywho. So
no, that makes
point
sense.
Aside,
I mean, yeah.
That talking about what you were sharing has me thinking about long-term athletic development. You and I were talking, before about long-term athletic development. They touched on a little bit at the conference, and I've kind of been going down a rabbit hole with it and doing some digging, just because it's been a while since I touched the stuff, since I was an undergrad. In long-term athletic development, there are different stages that an athlete and a person and a client goes through. In the early stages, they have to learn how to play. We all played soccer as kids, or most of us played soccer as kids, right? And the more you do it, the better you get at it, the more you move up into where there's, high stakes, right? Collegiate level soccer, if that's something you want to do. But you have to learn how to play the game. And you have to learn how to play a bunch of different games. That's how you improve physical literacy, or understanding how to move your body through space and time. That's massively important. And there are a handful of sports that are early specialization sports. Like, no one picks up gymnastics at 17, 18, 19, 20.
Yeah.
It's an early specialization sport. You start very young and you peak very young. There is no, I got into it late. You don't get into it late. You missed that ship. Yeah. I think dance is kind of maybe in the same way. Again, I don't have a list that I'm working from. This is just, so you have to learn.
Dance is up there. Yeah. I would say ice hockey is like that. Ice skating's like that. swimming even. There's
Yeah,
just a
so
couple I just top off my head. Yeah.
so you have to learn to play, and then once you learn how to play and you play a lot of sports, you eventually learn to compete, and then you play to win. Later in life, you play to win. Collegiate soccer, collegiate basketball, collegiate football. The amount of
Yeah.
money, the amount of stakes in there. It's very high stakes, very high skill required. And then, like you talked about, after that career, after that, playing to win, you have to learn to enjoy exercise. Because if you don't, you got one foot in the grave right away. You have to learn to love exercise, something,
Yeah.
which is why you try out a bunch of different things as a kid. So when you're an adult, you can say, oh, I really did enjoy golf. Oh, I really did enjoy swimming. I really did enjoy cycling. Maybe I'll do that.
Yeah.
Because if you didn't do anything except this one thing and now that's over, what do? Oh, you're miserable. You got one foot in the grave because you got nothing to do that you enjoy because you didn't expose yourself to it. So I say all that to say, for those that are listening that are youth athletes or parents of youth athletes, let your kid be your kid. Let them play a bunch of different sports. Yeah. Gently nudge them to try out other sports if they don't want to. Listen to them, what they enjoy, what they want to try out. Support them. Otherwise, your kid will not have healthy habits with exercise and training. And that's so sad. That's so sad. And to adults out there, find something that you enjoy that contributes to your health and wellness. Find something. Take a class. Call a friend. Go for a walk. Do something. That's what I got.
No, I like that. Yeah, and even thinking from like a strength coach perspective or a personal trainer perspective, trying to make things more out of your comfort zone, trying to, whether that's when I'm thinking of kids, like in our warm-ups, I'll play games that I made up and have all these crazy rules and make it really challenging in ways that they might have never played before. And like getting ice hockey players to jump and we're playing like spike ball volleyball, things like that, getting them out of comfort zone and that kind of stuff. Just things like that, or getting adults to be like, oh wow, that split squat, like let's work on a split squat, let's work on a lateral lunge, let's work on things like that they have maybe necessarily never even done, and trying to push them in those kind of ways and get them out of the comfort zone in that way too is good. So
that reminded me, where'd you go? There we go. That reminded me of something. I got off on my own tangent on accident. I wanted to bring it back to what you were saying about how do I gamify this experience as a strength coach.
Yeah.
You and I have different opinions, so I'm really glad that we do this. I don't think it is our job. I don't think it is our job. I think it's the job of the skills coach. And again, it depends on what athletes you're talking about. For example, yes, we should make training fun in some ways where we can, but it is in good training is a science experiment. Is what I'm doing eliciting the adaptation that I want? Yes or no? Are they getting stronger? Are they getting faster? Are they getting whatever? We do want to make it engaging. We do want to make it fun. We want to make it a place that athletes want to be and feel safe. But it's not really our job to gamify everything. It's the kid's job to say, I want to do this game. I want to do that game. I want to go out and play. I mean, that's what sports are. They're games. They become very high-stakes games later in life, but that's why it's important for a kid to try swimming and soccer and basketball and baseball and all these things. There's the games. When they're entering strength and conditioning, we're there to lift weights. We're there to work up a sweat. We're there to deepen our gas tanks. We're not there to play a game. We can introduce games for certain reasons, but it's not our job to make it this elaborate game every time they come in. I think a lot of coaches tend to get lost down that rabbit hole, and I do think we should make it fun, yes, and I do think for adults we need to tie it into the why, what's on the other side of it, right? Like, hey, we're gonna do Turkish get-ups today. Client says, I hate that. It sounds stupid. It looks weird. Why would I do that? And you say, well, it's going to work on shoulder stability. When you toss your grandkid up in the air, you want strong shoulders to catch them on the way back down, right? Oh, yeah. Well, so let's work on building those shoulders. No, I'm not saying that Turkish sit-ups are the best shoulder exercise. It's an example. Deal with it, audience.
We're helping them get off the ground, right? That's another, I think, for Turkish get-ups.
Absolutely. Or we're working on deadlifting today. Fun side story. We have a friend and former client who would like to give coaching staff a really tough time. And he had, I want to say front squats, back squats, something, some variation of a squat, right? And our friend, we'll, exchange names after it's over, but our friend and fellow coach walked up to this client and said, here's what you have today. We're going to work on this squatting variation. And the client, wanting to give the coach a hard time, says, what is this working? What am I working on? What's it helping me? What's the benefit? Why am I doing this? And the coach kind of looks stumped for a second and looks back at him, says, it works everything. You have this many sets and this many reps. Get after it. And I love that answer because, I mean, it's true. Like, you're working with this squat variation, you're working your legs and you're working your grip to hold the weight up and you're working your core. I mean, it's functional training at its best. So that's a great answer. What are you working? What is this working? Everything. Get to it. But to swing it back to what we were talking about, the importance of training is tying it into what the goal is. It's not our job to make it fun, but we do need to, show how it ties in. Here's how this helps you in your sport. Here's how this helps you with your grandkids. Here's how this helps you, in your day-to-day or at your job where you have low back pain all the time. This is going to help reduce some of that stiffness and soreness and da-da-da-da. You have to tie it into why we're doing it. Yeah, that's what I got.
Oh, that's good. I think that's a good way to wrap that too. Just kind of full circle that. And I think that is probably the most important part of all your training is tying it into what their goals are and what their needs are. And yeah.
All right. You want to take us out, Coach?
Yeah, it's been awesome. If you got here, please like, subscribe, comment. Let us know if you want us to talk more about any of these things. We definitely would love to if any of you would have any thoughts or questions or anything. So, yeah. All right. 3, 2, 1.
See ya.
See ya.